Teaching a routine on day 1 doesn't mean students will remember it on day 15. And today I want to show you a much more effective way to introduce routines, one that actually makes them stick.
Welcome to the Secondary Teacher Podcast, the podcast for middle and high school teachers juggling multiple preps to get the strategies to reduce overwhelm so that you don't have to choose between being an effective teacher and prioritizing important relationships. I'm your host, Khristen Massic, a 10-year high school engineering teacher, former middle school assistant principal, and teacher coach. Every week, we will discuss strategies, systems, and time-saving tips to help you not only survive but thrive as a multiple prep teacher.
Last episode, we talked about student accommodations, specifically how to make sure important information about your students doesn't get lost between the paperwork and the classroom. Today, we're staying in the first week conversation, but shifting to something students experience every single day. Your classroom routines, specifically when to teach them, how to teach them, and why front-loading everything on day 1 is probably working against you. Now, if you want more about routines, earlier this summer, I had a 4-episode series starting with episode 346. Let's get back. When I first started teaching, I did what I'd seen a lot of teachers do. First week of school, cover everything. Here's how to turn in assignments. Here's how to ask for help. Here's what to do when you're absent. Here's how to use the equipment. Here's how to clean up after a lab. And I remember specifically telling students about my turn-in system. I had those stackable paper baskets, 1 per class period, sitting on the counter near the door. I walked students through it, pointed to them, explained the system, and then we didn't turn anything in for about 2 weeks. Because most of what we were doing in those first weeks was introducing and practicing, not producing anything to submit yet, which looking back was actually the right instructional choice. But it meant that the basket routine sat dormant while students went on to 7 other classes with 7 other teachers and 7 completely different systems. So when the first assignment was finally ready to turn in, I said, okay, go ahead and turn those in. And I got blank stares. The baskets. We talked about the baskets, and I realized I had told them about the baskets. I had never actually used the baskets with them. Those are 2 very different things. And here's the part that makes it even more complicated for secondary teachers. I might have been the only teacher in the building using physical baskets. Every other teacher might have been collecting digitally or by table group or not at all. Students aren't navigating 1 classroom system. They're navigating 7, 8, maybe even more simultaneously. And the only routines that stick are the ones that get activated, practiced, reinforced, used in real time, not just explained. I started paying closer attention to elementary teachers, something I've mentioned before in this series. And one of the things that stood out most was how intentional they were about the timing of routine instruction. They didn't teach every procedure on day 1. They teach the next routine right before students need it. And that shift in timing makes all the difference because routines aren't just information, they're skills. And skills need practice at the moment they're most meaningful, not 2 weeks before they're relevant. So I stopped asking, what routines do I need to tell students about? And started asking, when will students actually need this routine for the first time? That's a much more useful planning question. So here are 3 ways to plan your routines more intentionally. 1, match routines to your lessons. If students are submitting their assignment on Thursday, that's when you teach the turn-in routine, not day 1, Thursday, right before they need it. If they're using lab equipment for the first time next week, that's when you introduce cleanup expectations, not during syllabus review, the day before lab day. Teaching routines in context gives students an immediate opportunity to practice them, which is the only way they actually stick. 2, decide what you'll model. Don't just tell students what to do. Think through what they actually need to see. Will you physically walk to the baskets and demonstrate? Will you show what a complete cleanup looks like before students touch any equipment? Will you model how to transition between activities so students know what that looks like in your room? Planning your teacher moves makes routines dramatically easier for students to learn and saves you from repeating yourself for the rest of the semester. 3, plan for practice. 1 explanation is never enough. Students need to use a routine several times before it becomes automatic. That means building a little extra time during those first few weeks, slowing down intentionally so you can speed it up later. It might feel slower at first, but it saves an enormous amount of time once students actually know what to expect. I want to be clear about something. This isn't really about classroom management. It's about classroom culture. When students know what's expected, when the routines are familiar and the structure is predictable, they can spend less energy figuring out what to do and more energy actually learning. Predictable routines create psychological safety. Students become more willing to ask questions, collaborate, and take academic risks when the structure of the classroom feels solid underneath them. That's the kind of culture most of us are trying to build. And it doesn't come from explaining everything on day one. It comes from teaching routines intentionally, one at a time, right when students need them, and giving students enough practice that the routine eventually carries itself. As you're planning your first few weeks, don't make a giant list of every routine you need to cover. Instead, look at your lesson plans. Ask yourself, what's the next routine students will actually need? Then plan exactly how you'll introduce it, model it, and let students practice it before you expect them to do it independently. You'll probably find the routines stick much better because students are learning them at the moment they're most meaningful. Next episode, we're shifting gears a little because as back to school gets closer, I know the questions start piling up. So I'm dedicating the next episode to the back to school questions multiple prep teachers are actually asking right now. The practical, specific, I need to figure this out before Monday kind of questions. That one's coming up next. If you'd like a simple way to organize all of this, I created a routines and procedures planner that's included inside the Secondary Teacher Systems Toolkit. It helps you map out each routine, decide when you'll introduce it, think through what you'll model, and make sure students have enough practice before you expect them to do it independently. The toolkit link is in the show notes, and if you're only looking for the planner, it's also available individually in my Teachers Pay Teacher store. Before you go, one question. When you introduce a routine this year, will you tell students about it or will you teach it to them? Because those aren't the same thing. And the classrooms that feel calm and consistent aren't the ones where every routine was explained on day one. They're the ones where every routine was taught right when students needed it and practiced until it became part of how the classroom naturally works. Finish something that makes tomorrow lighter. I'll see you next time.